Round one of the Asia Esports Championship saw a bit of a chaotic start turn into a dominant performance for Filippo Bokita, but today offers up a new challenge entirely in the form of one of the trickiest circuits in the world, the ever-notorious Imola. Welcome everyone to round two of the Mobileye GT World Challenge Asia Esports Championship. My name is DJ Clark, joined here in the commentary booth by David Addison. And David, we have an altogether different race on our hands today, with the sunny skies of Spain changing up a little bit to offer up some rain here in Italy.
And this, DJ, is going to make it really challenging indeed. It's given us a very strange-looking free practice and qualifying period as well, with some drivers adapting to the soggy nature, the slippery slide of the circuit better than others. And now it's a real step into the unknown, because not only are the conditions bad enough for drivers in their own right, but of course Imola has one or two early pinch points, like that sequence of corners through the Tamburello chicane, and then you've got the run down through Villeneuve up towards Tosa, all of which are hard enough when you've got such a big grid anyway. Factor in the rain, this is going to be a really dramatic first lap. Survive it and you could do very well.
Very, very well indeed, but it's going to have to be that survival mechanism that kicks in as we take a look right now of the entry list as we run through there. Presley Martono, Nigel Chua, some of the names to keep an eye on. Ferris Stanley looking very quick in qualifying, and Dylan Tan there in the pro category, the winner of the pro category last time out in Spain. But as it doesn't even need to be said, some great talent here on these entry lists.
And it prevails all the way through not only the pro class, but through silver as well. And the fact that Filippo Bokita, as a silver, was able to win outright in that first round at Barcelona, very, very impressive indeed. And that really has thrown down a marker for everybody else. So perhaps in the Asian Championship more than others, it's a really interesting split between the pros and the silvers. You don't have one class ahead of the other. It really is a proper blend between the two. And that means we're going to get some fantastic squabbles right the way down the order.
We most certainly are, and I think those squabbles, at least from what you're seeing in practice and qualifying, certainly going to be played out there with Bokita continuing her pace from our earlier rounds in Spain. As we run you through now the points as they stand, starting off in that silver category, as we said, Bokita leading from O'Hara and Wong, leading the way there. Only one race in the book, so not perfectly representative, but still you get a sense of where the pecking order is going to be.
Absolutely right. And again, you know, this is a circuit that is different from Barcelona in so many ways. Never mind the fact that the weather is different as well. It's going to be another great leveler, and with points only with one round in the book, a lot of people needing a good result here to kickstart a championship hopeful, because there's only 5 rounds here. You can't afford to have one bad race. It's a short, sharp championship. You've got to score in every round, and you've got to score well.
Yes, you do. And some of the drivers who scored well in that pro category last time out, Dylan Tan and Dikam Rahma Mulana and Fadil Rahmat, putting in those top 3 to be able to take it away. And as we see looking down the charts here, no real favored car as of just yet. Bokita able to make that Porsche work, but plenty of different entries here, and each one of the different rounds is going to change things up a little bit, and we'll have to see which of the cars will favor this Imola circuit.
Well, indeed so. Not only favour the circuit, but can cope with these weather conditions the best as well. A real-world SRO Fanatec GT race at Imola back in April was dry, but very, very cold. Well, you can see the state of the circuit. And, of course, it's not just the fact that it's a wet track. Get onto the curb, which is going to be even wetter. That's a problem. But also, there's going to be one line potentially around here, DJ, isn't there? And to do any overtaking, you're going to have to go off that line, where it's even more slippery and it's even more difficult to pass.
Yeah, it's going to make things very, very difficult. But before we get to that action, we have a quick video here from Lamborghini Esports that we'd like to show you. So let's turn it over to that.
So good to hear about Lamborghini's involvement in esports, and the Lamborghini potentially on home soil, virtual or otherwise, could well be a car to watch over the next 1 hour of racing with these mandatory pit stops. Now, we've talked about the circuit. It's steeped in history. It's also at the moment coated in rain as well. But let's learn a little bit more about the circuit. Courtesy of BMW and driver Ryan Houlihan, Ryan Gill will narrate you around courtesy of our Mobileye track overview.
Welcome to your Mobileye track overview here at the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edino Ferrari Imola. Let's jump on board with Ryan Houlihan in the BMW M4 GT3. Down the long start-finish straight we go. We want to go completely flat through turn 1 and then move to the right-hand side of the circuit and brake at the orange marker for the escape road. Turn the car in sharply for the Tamburello chicane, using as much of the curves as you can to keep the ideal line coming out of turn 4 and avoid going wide into the gravel train. Then keep to the right again for the Villeneuve chicane and you'll brake at the 100 metre board, clip the curb slightly so as to not unsettle the car, and stay to the right on your exit again as you'll brake at the 50 metre board for Tosa. Turn the car in nice and early and hit the throttle as soon as you can to slingshot the car up the hill. Stay to the right again as you crest the hill, then you'll be looking on the right hand side for the 50 metre board. Brake at that point and turn the car in quickly, clip the curbs on the inside before widening your exit. Hug the left side of the track now as you brake at the 50 metre board again for Acqua Minerale, clip the curbs on the inside and then cut as much of turn 13 as you can without avoiding track limits. Stay to the left and brake as you reach the curbing for the Variante Alta chicane, then drive over the chicane using as much of the anti-curbing as you can without losing control of the car. Don't go too wide on the exit and then work your way towards the right hand side of the circuit once you go through the kink. As for the final time, you'll be braking at the 100 metre board for Ravazza. Cut as much of the inside of turn 17 as you can, then just clip the edge of turn 18, run nice and wide on the exit, avoid the gravel trap on the right, and then you're prepared for another lap at Imola.
So we are almost good to go racing here at Imola, this second round of the Mobileye GT World Challenge Esports Asia Sprint Series. It is another very, very full grid with cars, of course, in both Pro and Silver, and it is going to be Andika Maulana who lines up on the outside of the road on that pole position as we have a look down the grid with Andrew O'Hara lining up second. So very much a Mercedes front row. Filippo Bocchida will start third. Ferris Stanley will start fourth on the grid. And fifth is where you will find the car of Keon Lee. Dylan Tan lines up sixth on the grid. Have a quick stroll all the way down it. Number 29, another one to watch for. Dafa Nabil, eighth on the grid. 390, which is one of the quick of the pro class entries, that of Yatlam Law. But you'll see how many silvers you've got up at the pointy end of the grid. Ryan Houlihan is going to go from 9th on the grid. 10th is where Art Mohammed Alif is going to start. 11th is the silver entry of Marco Wong. And to line up alongside is Ryan Duong with one of the Audis, a car that in real world racing goes really well around here. Keep scrolling on further back on the grid. There is 29. That's the BMW of Dafa Nabil, the new for this year GT3 M4 out of the JMX Phantom team. And there in the Mobileye colours is resplendent Ryan Houlihan, who is going to be a man to watch, I would have thought, in this race, starting 9th on the grid, but could make some progress from there, that is for sure. Further down the order on this wet circuit, have a look at another of the quick BMWs, number 9 there, which is Marco Wong's car. 281 lines up alongside. That's Ryan Duong's Audi. Next on the grid comes number 187 of Moreno Pratama, and alongside him is 11 of Fikrit Sega, another of these BMWs. On the next row of the grid, yet another of these grunt and grow front-engined BMs, that being 15th on the grid, number 18, which is Kobe Chan, to line up alongside in 311 Russell Reyes with the JMX Phantom Mercedes. Next on the grid, it is going to be the Bentley of Fadli Rahmat. Quite a long way down on the grid, actually, that car. And 118 Mercedes lines up alongside in the hands of Kui Sheng Huang. Next, we get to number 60, Sam Madison, with the Honda which we saw getting roughed up a little bit in the Europe sprint round recently, and then 138 of Williams Sanjotto, another of the BMWs. 21 comes next. That is Luis Moreno's Aston Martin, quite a long way back on the grid. 56 lines up alongside. That is Damon Wood's Porsche, and then 951 next of Kejin Chow further back on the grid. And still, we scroll all the way back towards the approach, really, to the Variante Bassa, which is that final little run up towards the timing line. You can see how far back on the grid it stretches. And with this many cars, DJ Clark, keeping out of trouble at the start of the race is going to be absolutely vital, isn't it?
Yes, it is. The sweeping turn down into Tamburello going to be very, very tricky to pick your braking lane, especially as you mentioned earlier on, David, getting into the wet here, trying to break offline. Those drivers are not going to know how the tires, how the brakes are going to feel in these wet conditions. I'm knocking on all the wood I have, but hopefully we're going to be able to get through nice and clean.
Also, there is the back of the grid. See the Ferraris, the Hondas all lined up, good to go. And as the cars drop down onto the circuit, we're just over a minute away from that formation lap. The time of day in game, just after 6 o'clock. So it's going to be not only a wet track, but I would have thought in terms of a temperature, DJ, very cold as well. It's going to take a lap or two or three to get tyres up to temperature.
It certainly is, and remember that the way the qualifying, the practice was working, these drivers were working well into the night, so changing track conditions, they haven't really been able to feel what it is going to be like to be out here at nearly 6:10 in the morning, and so that is going to be another big unknown for these drivers. There are so many things that they're going to have to factor into. Yes, they are all incredibly talented drivers, but it is going to be a tricky run into Tamburello, and especially, I think, down into Villeneuve and Tosa as well. A lot of experimentation will be happening on this first lap.
It will indeed, and as we keep making the point, staying out of trouble is going to be absolutely vital in all of this. I had a feeling there was one gap on that grid, but let's see. Yeah, there are one or two missing, aren't there, towards the back. So who should we have alongside 166? Can't tell you that because the grid information doesn't tell us that far down, but there are one or two missing towards the back of the grid, so we'll try to pick point one or two of those. Right, we are almost in business because now people blast away, so it is going to be Andika Malana from pole position that leads them off towards the Tamburello, and Andrew O'Hara in the Laundry House colours, the tongue-in-cheek Leighton House Miami blue colour scheme adorning his Mercedes. Very much a Mercedes-dominated qualifying, with them locking out the front row of the grid, but then it's an all-Porsche second row. This is going to be really interesting to see which turns out to be the better brand at the end of the hour.
It certainly is, and I'd be a little bit concerned about those Porsches here. In the dry, they are absolutely fantastic, able to get that rotation around the corners with that rear-engine, rear-wheel drive layout of the cars, but in the wet, that can get a little bit squirrely on you, so I think the drivers are going to have to be extra cautious, especially as those tires come up to temperature. Watch for the Mercedes, maybe the BMW, known as a little bit more of a planted platform. They may have a little bit more luck here, especially in the early going.
So that's the climb as you watch Filippo Bocchida at work out of the Tosa hairpin. Really steep climb this, and then it gets a little bit steeper again on the run up towards Piratella, and Piratella itself, fast corner, fast left-hander. Track limits can often be an issue on the outside because there's this really inviting runoff area that says, come over here, come and explore. Well, if you do, you keep up the momentum, but of course you can gain an advantage, so track limits might well be an element at this particular part of the circuit. Then it's the plunge downhill, heavy braking for the Acqua Minerale, and then another steep climb the other side of it on the run up towards the Variante Alta. So this is the kink that takes you down towards the Acqua Minerale. So you're braking at this point, and then the corner itself beckons, stand on the brakes, sharp turn, and then back onto the power as quickly as you can, otherwise you lose momentum on the climb up the hill.
Yes, you do, and sometimes we see the more aggressive drivers be able to take a little bit of a look going down into Variante Alta, but that can be a little bit hairy as it is a very, very narrow corner, and as you mentioned earlier, David, those big curbs there just begging you to take a big wide run over them, but with the rain here, that's going to throw off a little bit of the traction for these cars, and that's going to make things a little bit more difficult, I think, in trying to be aggressive in those overtakes down into that area.
Yeah, I think you're going to be right about that. It really is a case of trying to force a mistake out of the guy ahead of you rather than try and do anything heroic. Certainly to begin with. Now, if the road dries, then that's a different scenario altogether. But certainly to begin with, caution is going to be the watchword. Andika Maulana then is going to be on the ideal line, the inside line, ready for the run towards Tamburello. They're lining up alongside him is Andrew O'Hara in 51. Philippa Bakida, third on the grid. Ferris Stanley lining up fourth. Fifth is where you find then 969, which is the best of the BMWs on the grid of Lee. So as the field then now accelerates, this is Kin Longley up towards the timing line. We are set to go racing for this second round of the Mobileye GT World Challenge Esports Asia Sprint Series. It's a long run out of Rivazza up towards the line. But in a moment, the lights will change. The race to get underway on a wet and slippery circuit. Andika Maulana waits for the lights to go green. Patient as they crawl their way up towards the timing line. The lights will change any moment. And now we are in business then. 1 hour of racing with mandatory pit stops underway and a good start by Maulana. Philippa Bakida tries to stay tucked up behind on the run on the inside line up towards Tamburello for the first time. Andrew O'Hara on the outside braves it out. Outside for the first part, inside for the second, the outside for the third element. There are cars on the grass, there are cars sideways. And Andrew O'Hara got run out wide by the look of it, coming out of the Tamburello sequence. Well, he's hung on to that second place, but only just. Brave stuff by Philippa Bakida, but Andika Maulana has already converted pole into the race lead and he's getting away.
Yeah, starting to pull away here, and that's exactly the kind of thing that he wanted to see behind him. That battle between O'Hara and Bakida is just going to slow them down a little bit. Lawrenson there, one of the drivers in the back, I believe, that had that run off. A little bit of a coming together there, but not nearly as dire as we were expecting.
No, they all survived that pretty well. So as the cars now turn their way for the first time down towards the Acqua Minerale, you can see that it's a Mercedes 1-2. Andika Maulana getting away. Andrew O'Hara runs second. Philippa Bakida it is in third as they make that climb now up towards the quick chicane, the right-left flick. Here it is of the Variante Alta, and then in turn you drop back downhill towards Rivazza. Maulana leading the way, and at the moment O'Hara is rather busier fending off the challenge of Bakida than being able to go after the leader, isn't he?
Yeah, having to look in his rear view mirrors quite a bit there as they make the run down towards Rivazza, trying to tuck up and just get a little bit of the draft here is Bakida. Further down in the back, that's Kobe Chan under a little bit of an attack.
Down they come then into the braking zone. You can see Chan there is making a move up on the inside line of the Porsche, gets himself up past Damon Woods, or does he? Because they brave it out side by side through the two elements of Rivazza, and there's mayhem at the top of the hill coming out of the Variante Alta. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. We've had strife there, and the battle here, look, continues. Damon Woods, he's not giving up without a fight.
Not giving up at all, and that's Madison trying to look involved in the action as well in the Honda, trying to see what they can do. Almost three wide as they plunge their way down towards Tamburello.
And there the Honda does get up the inside. There's contact and all sideways, I'm afraid, off the road. Then it goes. That was a brave effort, but it did not work by Sean Madison because he clipped the curb. That completely unsettled the car. He's bounced into the traffic. He's still in the race, but that has cost him dear. He's dropping place after place after place. What is he, 28th? And still on the grass there as he tries to recover. Make that 29th, make it 30th, make it 31st. He is dropping like a stone.
One driver who's trying to hold on here and move ahead, though, Ryan Houlihan in the Mobileye 999 machine, working their way up the hill through Piratella. Not really able to get a lot, but a whole flock of BMWs here running 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th.
So the BMWs at the moment showing good pace, but not necessarily good enough to make much progress. If anything here, Ferris Stanley in the Porsche in 5th, being able to maintain that gap over then the car in the hands of Kim Long Lee. And you can see that Houlihan really is having to work very, very hard indeed. He's got BMW stacked up behind him, hasn't he? First of all, there's Vickery Segai, then there's Marco Wong. And while he's defending, of course, DJ, he just can't do anything about catching the traffic ahead.
No, trying to get down on the back of Nebula there. Looks like a good move from the 11th. Thought about it going down into Ravazza 1. Now going to try to carry some of that momentum around the outside there. Just keep up a little bit more speed. And it looks like at the exit there, they're all just going to tuck up behind in the draft. And I've got a sneaking suspicion that we're going to have a big firing off of action here.
Okay, here they come, side by side then, hugging the inside all the way up to Tamburello. Goes Ryan Houlihan, the Mobileye backed car then. But up alongside comes Segai now, but that's the wrong line, and he's left the door open. He almost gets mugged by Marco Wong. There was contact, there's contact again. Take that, says a rather frustrated Segai, and Marco Wong definitely came off worse. He tried to make the move for position, and well and truly got roughed up.
Yeah, very much did. Didn't look like that there was going to be any room there going in. A very opportunistic move, I have to say, but able to make it work there as Seguir now is going to be able to hold on to that 11th place, but look at all the time he has lost to Houlihan up ahead of him.
They make the climb up now towards the Piratella out of Tosa. Now, while all this is going on, Andika Maulana up front is trying to build that lead with 2 laps in the book. He's over a second clear of Andrew O'Hara, who in turn is only half a second up the road on Philippa Bokida. Ferris Stanley, though, has now done the fastest lap of the race, so he's on a mission, and the BMWs starting now to, dare one say, calm down just a little bit after all of that rather frenetic racing. This is the battle pack building up, though, for second. O'Hara and Bokida, and they are being caught, are they not now, by Dylan Tan with his Mercedes 4th, and he's taking Ferris Stanley with him in 5th. So right now, O'Hara potentially becoming the cork in the bottle.
Yeah, certainly looks that way as he tries to hold on to the best he can over Bokida now. Bokida doing a great job to keep up that pressure, but it looks like she is being held back here. Got to try to get on by, but doesn't look like that Porsche's got the run there coming off of Ravazza 2.
Towards the timing line they come. There is then Ferris Stanley, who goes over the timing line in the Porsche with the Rocket Sim Sports team entry. And right now, Ferris Stanley is, 4/10 back from the traffic. So he needs, if he can, to get a bit of a shuffle on here. But it's looking very good for Mercedes, that 1-2. That said, Maulana is not extending the gap, is he? He's built it to just over a second, and that seems to be where it's plateaued a bit.
Yeah, Maulana just looks like it's there. O'Hara maybe hearing our words of wisdom and trying to get a little bit of a move on, trying to pull away from Bokida, but Bokida setting the fastest lap of the race last time out, certainly putting the charge to the back of that 51. That is the battle for silver overall. Remember, those 2 silver drivers right up in the mix of all of the pro drivers here.
Now, Philippa Bokida has done the fastest lap of the race now, and that margin between her and Andrew O'Hara just up the road ahead is coming down. So this is good news in a sense, because it means that Philippa Bokida is taking the challenge to the Mercedes, and exactly as she is doing that, so also is Ferris Stanley. Look, closing on Dylan Tan. Now, does this suggest that the Porsches are, for want of a better phrase, waking up a little bit, that they're now getting happier in these conditions? We are now at 6:20 in the morning local time, so the temperature is going up a little bit, and of course, crucially, DJ, the road is drying a touch now.
Exactly. Well, remember what I said earlier on with the rear engine, rear wheel drive, that's an inherently slightly unstable platform for the Porsches. There's a lot of rear end movement in those cars. It's great to be able to get a good amount of rotation when you come around a corner, but in tricky conditions like this, you've got to be very, very careful. I think as the dry line continues to come in, we're going to see those Porsches wake up more and more.
I think you're right about that, certainly. Marco Wong is busy trying to get himself back up the order at the expense there of Russell Reyes in 3-1-1, the JMX Phantom car. Russell Reyes, who was 14th in class at Barcelona, so eager for a better result out of this as the leaders pound over the line once again then. So looking at this midfield squabble, Marco Wong in 15th place, having been roughed up at the start of the lap. Over the line he comes, at BMW that makes a really great noise, and we've seen them win in the Pro Series esports competition when Neil Verhagen won at Imola in the Fanatec Arena the night before the main Endurance Cup round in the real world. But what we don't know, of course, is how much damage Wong has picked up after that bit of contact. So it does look as though he is struggling now, and it is a legacy of that incident a lap ago.
Yeah, and you can see just a little bit of crinkling there on the right side of that BMW. Could it be affecting the straight line speed a little bit? The aerodynamics slightly thrown off. These cars so aerodynamically sensitive as they run.
And Marco Wong, don't forget, third in the championship in silver from the points scored at Barcelona. Well, right now he's quite a long way back in that class. He needs to get a bit of a shuffle on. Now we are having incidents being looked at. A time penalty is being given to Ho Long Ao Young in the Porsche from the Z Challenger Racing Junior team for causing a collision on the opening lap of the race. So the stewards are being busy.
Yes, they have, and not exactly surprised there. We saw that big kerfluffle as it all came together going down into Tamburello, and a lot of drivers being put off there as a part of that opening battle, so stewards handing out those decisions. I don't think that's the last one we're going to see here on the day.
I think you can pretty much bet your house on that, I agree. Ferry Stanley then in the Porsche number 73 on the back of Dylan Tan. Now they've dropped off the tail of the O'Hara-Bokida battle, but as they head up towards the line once more, it does look as though Dylan Tan is the one doing the defending now, rather than being able to concentrate on catching back up to the traffic up the road. Now remember, Dylan Tan runs 4th in the race, 2nd in Pro, but he comes into it as the Pro Championship leader, so he's got to make a call as well here, whether to fight for place or just bank the points, because 2 of those 3 cars up the road aren't in his element of the championship. He doesn't really need to worry about them.
He doesn't need to worry about them, but Milana up in the front of the field right now is his championship rival as things run, so they will be tied if they were to finish the way that it is. A little bit of a move on there for Ferris Stanley. I think he wants to be able to try to get by Dylan Tan.
Comes out of Tosa, makes the climb up the hill. He definitely wants to get past Dylan Tan, but he's getting thoroughly bored with staring at the back of that Mercedes. He wants a change of scene. It's not going to coming towards Piratella, but if he's really brave, it might be now that the Porsche gets quicker down the hill towards Acqua Minerale. This is where the gap might come down, but no, they're pretty much under the balance of performance. Dead set level, aren't they? Nobody gains, nobody loses on that run down towards the tight right at the foot of the hill.
No, nobody's going to get anything there as they now come towards Alta, working their way in, heavy onto the brakes. It looks like Stanley lost a little bit of time there. I think he clobbered that second curb just a little bit too much and had to be a little bit late on the throttle, and that cost him maybe 1/10 of a second.
He was certainly very keen over the curbs at the Variante Alta, which forces the car to become unsettled, and it might even do some damage if you give them a big whack, but actually he has stayed pretty much on the tail of Dylan Tan. Andrew O'Hara, in the meantime, going after the race leader, has now done the fastest lap of the race. That margin is coming down. Russell Reyes in his Mercedes, number 311, hard at work, trying to keep at bay Marco Wong and also get onto the tail of Moreno Pratama's Motul Racing Aston Martin as the cars boom past the pits once more. So there are lots of battles going on, and there are more building up, and one of them could even be coming for the outright lead if O'Hara gets on with the job now.
It could indeed, as that time continues to work its way down. Want to give kudos here to Pratsma, as that is the highest placed Aston Martin right now, so clearly carrying the banner for the British Marquis, doing a great job there up in 12th.
That's right, the Aston Martin, which has been a very competitive car around here in real world racing as well as in esports competition, so pressing on to good effects. Also, we've got Bentleys, of course, on the grid, another good British mark, but they are not, for the moment, making much progress, are they? Because Fadli Rahmat, for example, in his Bentley, down in, only 18th. Now, we've got dramas going on in silver by the look of it, because as the order shuffles, I think we've got drivers in strife and disconnecting, because yes, look, now Andrew O'Hara has disappeared from the order, from the race, and Dika Maulana has done the fastest lap, but that's a huge disaster if Andrew O'Hara's had a disconnect, because that means he's done for.
Yeah, not able to reconnect back into the server there. That will be a disqualification, as it were, and that is going to drastically change the face of this race. We talked about O'Hara being able to close down on Milana a little bit. Well, that gap is now back up to 2.3 seconds, with Bokida carrying the flag, trying to close back in.
And also now Philippa Bokida gets a clear ride up towards the back of the leading car. She doesn't have to worry about overtaking any traffic anymore. So now the road is clear. She can do some qualifying laps in a sense and get the gap down to Milana. Now let's see what it is. It was over 2 seconds. It still is. It's 2.4 as your starting point, but that's going to be the one to watch as you look at the best of the Ferraris going through there. Mohamed Alif, 7th overall right now. And he, remember, is running in the pro class, so eager to try to gain more points, more places there. And he's going the right way about it, because straight away, look, he's onto the tail of Yat Lam Law's Waco's Flip Table Racing BMW.
Little bit of a wide run there. That Ferrari getting a little bit squirrely on the exit of Tamburello, but able to control it well. You can really tell just how much Alif is pushing here, trying to take absolutely every inch of this course to try to gain some time.
Indeed so, as they make that climb now up out of Tosa. So, we are currently working lap number 8. Filippo Bocchida is doing the chasing against Andika Maulana. The road's still damp, still slippery. Just wonder as well, when we get to the mandatory pit stops, whether drivers are going to have to think about tyres, because if the road is much, much drier than it was at the start, and they're on the wrong compound to get them to the end, it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, it certainly will, and that's going to be a little bit of the gamble that they're going to have to take as they go in. Still looks like rain's slightly falling around here, so my gut would say probably want to stick on the wets as long as you can. But if we start to see that dry line develop, that could be a real dice throw for some of our drivers.
And presumably, therefore, DJ, you're going to want to make your pit stop as late as you can, because by that stage, you'll have a better idea of what the weather is going to do. You don't want to make a second pit stop, do you?
No, you do not. You do not want to waste any of that time in the pits at all. So I would imagine drivers trying to pull out as late as possible into the mandatory pit stop window. Good
move there. You saw Yuki Shirakawa's Ferrari getting up on the inside. Look back now from Moreno Pratama's Aston Martin, and it's Russell Ray's behind. So in a straight line, look, the Aston Martin gets away. You can see the Mercedes falling back. When they came out of the Rivazza double apex left, you could barely see the grille on the Mercedes. Now you can see it very clearly, so that margin has certainly stretched, and Reyes is back under attack from Marco Wong, who goes to the outside line, gets squeezed a little bit and gets sideways. That was a good save, but it's not helped him gain a place.
No, it is not, but give that man an award for the save of the day. Absolutely incredible stuff there. As there you can see Cal behind getting up onto the grass in that number 951 BMW, trying to extend track limits a little bit.
Yeah, he's got his own sat-nav, I think, to get him round here. Such was the line there, but the order continues to be an intriguing one as different cars start to come on strong, others start to fade. And Andika Maulana, however, is maintaining this 2.4 second advantage. Now, what about Ryan Houlihan's chances? Because he has now put himself up onto the back look of Dafa Nabil. Two of the BMWs running together, the Mobileye ex-Laundry House car in the hands of Ryan Houlihan, running in 9th place, but now he's going to have to get his elbows out, isn't he, and try and prise open that door to gain the position.
Yes, he has, but I think with the speed that we've seen out of the 999, certainly possible. Not going to have a look going down into the Variante Alta is not the way to do it. Tries to get a little bit of a better line there as both cars just scrambling to try to find that grip as they run out wide there onto the gas.
Downhill they will plunge then. This is the run down towards Rivazza. Great part of the circuit with the houses overlooking and the apartments overlooking the circuit, and lots of fans will hang off their balconies watching the action. They head up towards the end of the lap. We look at the start once more, and Andika Maulana, finding all the wet parts of the road, nailed that. Filippo Bocchida made a good getaway, got up alongside Andrew O'Hara, but he braked later. But then, was there contact between them? No, not quite. I think Andrew O'Hara just got run out wide over the curb. But others in the mid-pack exploring different lines as they went for a clear bit of real estate. And then it was towards the back where it all got a bit leery, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, and we take a look back here. This is where everything came together, and not in a good way. Coming down into the squeeze, a little bit late braking. Ooh, maybe a little bit of internet connection there, bringing some of it around, but you can see drivers absolutely spinning. That is not the way you want to be facing there if you're the 488.
Absolutely right. 488 to Vandry Lawrenson, the Laundry House Ferrari. So Ryan Houlihan has, I think, now made that move, hasn't he, to get himself up past the BMW in the hands of Dafa Nabil. So Ryan Houlihan is trying to work his way forward all the time, but also in the mix now is the number 11 BMW. That is Fikri Segaya, who is doing his best to catch back up again. So Ryan Houlihan's finally made that move, as I say. He's up into 8th place. Now he's got quite a lot of work to do to catch Mohamed Alif, because the 7.9 flash axle Ferrari is a long way. There it is, up the road, coming up towards the Variante Alta, and the pit window is open. Now, are we going to have any takers? When you see the little white one in the orange background, that 4th column in the timing tower go green, it tells you they've made their pit stop. But I'd be surprised if we get many early takers, given what we've been saying about the weather.
Yeah, exactly, David. I think you are going to wait and see these drivers try to extend this stint as long as possible. It's a 30-minute pit window here, so they're able to make it all the way down to 15 minutes left to go in this race. And I think these drivers want to just see how the conditions are. So we've got a little bit of side-by-side coming down into Ravazza.
We have indeed. The Bentley, it's going to lose out, I fear, here. So there you can see the BMW of Kejin Kao makes the move, but it doesn't actually pay off in the end. So just being able to hang on to the place there was Chris Tsang. The Bentley hugged the inside line, may not have had the pace, but did get the shorter line. Kejin Kao now comes back at him, and that's the inside line for Tamburello. So the road comes to the BMW. Look at this, absolutely side by side up towards Tamburello, and Chow now has to brake as late as he can, and he has done it. Through he goes. Good pass, worked hard for that 20th place overall.
Very, very good move. Pretty much textbook as you get it to go, as I think we're going to jump back to some more replays here, David.
Okay, let's have a look at who did what to which and to whom. This was what all happened up at the Variante Ultra on the first lap. In some cases, it was a case of just going for a gap to try and avoid contact. In other cases, it was just a big, big scrum that put you in contact. And, of course, putting the power down on a wet road out of a really slow corner. That was a big, big hit there that wiped out the Mercedes. And just a chain reaction, wasn't it? As soon as the incident had started, people found themselves on the wrong line, going for a gap that soon closed, and inevitably, big, big drama.
Yeah, when you've got that much rain on the circuit, trying to put the power down early on cold tires, it is a recipe for disaster coming on through there. A lot of drivers finding themselves out in race control, I'm sure, still looking at those incidents, as we said.
Now, Javier Lai, in his Mercedes, number 74, currently in 23rd place, trying to get up the order. You can see how they've almost through the field paired off a little bit. You've got a battle, then a gap, then a battle, then a gap, there it is, Blue Steel Racing Mercedes, currently 23rd overall, going after aboard number 166, Oscar Liu with the Aston Martin.
Yeah, trying to close in there. Looked like Oscar Liu a little bit early on the brakes going down into Ravazza. That tells me he's just a little bit hesitant here, trying to feel things out. Doesn't incredibly feel comfortable. And again, a little bit of a wiggle there coming off the line. That comes from getting the power down while you're on those curbs. Just a little bit too much. I've got to think Liu here is going to be under a lot of attack.
I think you're right, and also we have a 30-second stop-go penalty for number 39 Ferrari of Yukishiro Kawa, so that I suspect has been applied by the game rather than by the real-world stewards. Javier Lai still busy in the Mercedes, but he's actually not quite close enough at this part of the circuit to really make a move, is he?
No, he's not, but if you are Javier Lai at this point, you are going to be feeling a little bit of smile coming across your face, seeing those mistakes from the driver in front of you, as Lai makes a little bit of a mistake there coming through Villeneuve, but seeing those mistakes from a driver in front of you, that lets you know that you're in their head a little bit, and that means they are primed for an overtake.
Does indeed, and the gap has certainly closed here, hasn't it, coming up the hill out of Tosa, so down has come that margin. They're almost nose to tail as they swing now from the Piratella down towards the Acqua Minerale. The next problem that Javier Lai is going to find really is looking for the amount of room that he needs to make that pass. Downhill they come towards Acqua Minerale. He's applying the pressure all the time to the Aston Martin. He's trying to force a mistake here, isn't he, out of Oscar Liu.
Yes, he is, and Liu went defensive there at the beginning as race control issuing a few more penalties there. It looks like declaring some of the lap 1 incidents there just a racing deal.
Indeed, you can't really apportion blame for some of them. If you were tagged into a spin and hit somebody else, it's not really your fault. So the stewards have had a long look. They've got so many different camera angles and they can apportion blame or otherwise. So as this battle rages on, we're looking at 22nd and 23rd overall. You can see Javier Lai hard at work. You can see what the drivers are up to. You can see them in their rigs, in their accommodation, with the headset on, with the gloves, with the racing boots, and up towards the timing line they will come. This to complete the lap. We're not yet, of course, at the halfway point. Still 37 minutes and change on the clock. But now, look, the Mercedes looks like it's got a run.
Yes, he does, but it looked like some good defensive driving there from Liu, going to be able to hold him off for now. Javier Lai is having to press the advantage as much as possible, but still not coming to him.
And at that section of the circuit, after what seemed to be inevitable that he was going to get through. The gap widens the other side of Tamburello. Now the lead gap has gone up. I was expecting it to come down a bit. Filippa Bocchida still leading her class, but has dropped 0.4 of a second to Andika Milano. We're looking at what's going on for 11th place here, where 281 Ryan Duong's Baked Potato Racing Audi battles on. It's one of the other joyous things about esports racing. You get some great team names. And the Baked Potato Audi is trying now to get onto the back of the next of the BMWs. 11 is the car, and it is Fikri Segar at the wheel of it. There goes the Audi.
Yes, there goes the Audi, and a little bit of a battle from behind that we've been keeping our eye on as well. Reyes here trying to close down on Pratma as they plunge their way down the hill. Russell here just trying to keep that pressure up as he sees the battle in front of him starting to rage. That'll be good news for him as he knows that that could potentially hold up the 187 and maybe give him a little bit more of an opportunity.
Absolutely right. So on board now with Russell Reyes. This car is in 13th place overall. Remember, it's another of the silver class cars, and he's running 4th in class. So in terms of points that he's going to score, it's actually getting a lot better for him, isn't it, relative to his overall position. Russell Reyes goes through. Terry Rayton is running 17th in his Audi number 85 as he goes through as well. That's another of the laundry house entries. There it is. So Terry Rayton up towards Tamburello. I've got to say, the road does look like it's drying, and the fascination of what people are going to do on tyres when we get to the pit stops is still there.
Yeah, it very much is, as we've got another little train forming here. A Leaf trying to close back on the back of Yatlam Law, and Lee up ahead of them. And I've got to agree with you here that I think this strategy is going to be playing out. Drivers waiting as long as possible to come down into pit lane. It's going to be very, very interesting. I'd still be a little bit scared to make the jump over to Slicks, though, at this point.
Yeah, you kind of need to do what everybody around you is doing. If you, for example, had a drama on the first lap and you're way, way back and out of the points, that roll of the dice might work in your favour. You've nothing to lose. But if you are, for example, a Dylan Town or a Ferris Stanley running up in the top 4 at the moment, you sort of need to do what everybody else around you is doing, because the fear is that it goes wrong and you fall way, way down the order. So whoever blinks first and makes the pit stop, I think that's going to be the catalyst for everybody else to make the decision accordingly.
Yeah, I think you're right on that, and that's where the whole team that these drivers have behind them is going to come into play. They're not just doing this by themselves. They often have engineers, crew chiefs, spotters, anything like that, talking in their ear. They're going to be keeping an eye on their competitors, and they're going to let the drivers know what decisions need to be made.
Absolutely so. There is Mohamed Alif going over the line. That's the best of the Ferraris, isn't it? In 7th place right now as he comes over the line. Further back, the Baked Potato Audi, that of Ryan Duong, looks to try to make a move. Gets the run up against the BMW on the outside into Tamburello. There's a little rub between them, but they're on the inside line hanging onto the place. Fikri Segar hangs on in there. The danger now, of course, is that Ryan Duong loses ground, loses pace, and gets caught by Moreno Pratama with the Motul Racing Aston Martin. And what was a battle of 2 is now a fight for 3.
Yes, it is, as they try to get their way, get the power down out of Villeneuve. It looks there like Pratma's going to try to really be late on the brakes going down into Tosa. He is eager to close that gap.
Absolutely right. Ryan Duong then is under attack, and he's on the attack at the same time. So it's this really invidious position for a driver. You're trying to concentrate on finding a way past the car ahead, but at the same time you've got to somehow make sure you don't open the door. And now that Aston Martin is looking very, very racy indeed. And look, as they get to the bottom of the hill, the BMW of Fikri Segar was just extending that margin by a length.
Yes, they are, but here's that little bit of a battle we were talking about earlier. Alif and Yatlam Law. Alif trying to make a move down into Variante Alta. Not going to be successful, and that Waco's Flip Table Racing 390 going to be able to hold ahead for now.
Indeed so, as up front, Andika Maulana 2.9 seconds to the good. He's done the fastest lap of the race as well, as Yatlam Law comes downhill with Mohamed Alif right on his tail. BMW versus Ferrari. That Ferrari looks like it's another car that's quickening its pace as the race wears on here. Up towards the timing line they now go. They'll break the beam in a moment as they come up past the pits. Then 15 laps done by the race leader. 2.8 seconds is the margin. No further action against 1 or 2 people for skirmishes on the first lap. As now Alif goes to the outside line of Law, but it's not going to be the place to try into the Tamburello. Certainly not on this lap.
No, not quite yet. And yeah, to your point earlier, David, about that Ferrari looking like it's coming alive. We saw earlier on the BMW and the Mercedes looking very, very good. That's because those cars tend to be a little bit more understeery. They tend to be a little bit more planted. You have to put a little bit more force to get them around the corner, and you can lean on those cars more. The Ferrari, the Audi, the Porsche, they're a little bit more delicate, a little bit more of a fine-tuned turn in. And I think now that the track is drying a little bit more, those cars are coming alive, and they're able to lean on the cars more at this point.
I think you're right. It's interesting as well, though, isn't it, that Andika Maulana's fastest lap of the race was set relatively early on. You'd have thought, as we are nudging half distance now and the road might be drying, that would help cars go faster. Yes, okay, it might be that the tyres aren't quite as good, but you balance that with the fact that they're lighter on fuel now. But I don't know, I'd be tempted. If I were a long way down the order, I'd roll the dice and go slicks for the second part of the race, if you can get them up to temperature in time.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I think if you're from about 15th on down, Sergei Marinenko, maybe one of those drivers that could be looking at doing that. This is about the cutoff point that I'd think about going on slicks.
Indeed so. Those that have had, as you can see, like Moreno Pratama, a stop-go penalty of 30 seconds. Now Russell Reyes is getting one as well. You know, you've nothing to lose if you're that far out of contention. Maybe they're the sort of people that could roll the dice. I'm assuming those are penalties applied by the game for track limits.
Yes, indeed. If you pick up too many there, you will pick up those track limit penalties, and that is what can take them out. So not applied by race control there. That is from ACC itself.
Well, right now, we are very nearly at halfway, and finally, look, we are getting one or two people making their mandatory stops. Just park the penalties for a moment, but certainly one, Fadli Rahmat with the Bentley. Now, that has been in for the mandatory stop. 5-second time penalty we'd had early on applied to Ho Long Aoyang's Porsche. Now, what about Ferry Stanley? He is coming back at Dylan Tan, isn't he? The Porsche catching back up onto the tail of the Mercedes here.
Yeah, again, that story of the Porsche coming a little bit more alive as this race goes along, starting to put pressure onto the back of Dylan Tan. And right here at this point, I wouldn't necessarily be looking at an overtake necessarily. Maybe just poke your nose this way and that. See if you can get into the head of the 144 and just try to force the smallest error.
I think you're right, certainly. That road, to my eye, looked much, much drier than it did half an hour ago. And so this surely is a factor now for the drivers. Now, of course, we'd be talking about cars waking up. It could be that it's not just the car, it's the driver's attitude to preserving the tyres. So thinking, well, I don't want to go and stress the rubber too early because it's going to deteriorate. I need to be a bit more conservative in my pace and try and get that set of tyres to last to the very end.
Yeah, now that we close in with about halfway down in that pit stop window, that saving can start to come into play. You can start to lean on that rubber a little bit more, start to push a little bit more, and we could see that that's what's coming into play.
Absolutely right, but as the road continues to dry, then it's going to be a very, very interesting dash into the pit lane, and you can see how few of the leading drivers are prepared to yet bail out of the race and serve that pit stop for fear of doing the wrong thing. It might even be here that we get to the last minute of the pit window and suddenly we've got the leading 15 or so all coming into the pit lane in a mad scramble because nobody wants to take that gamble yet and make the pit stop and perhaps give an advantage by showing their hand to the opposition.
Exactly, that strategy game so crucial here. You don't want to give anything away, and as we keep saying, you want to just try to hold on to any advantage that you can have, and you want to see if this track is going to dry out a little bit earlier. You were right earlier, David, this track looking drier and drier every minute, and the longer you can go before you pull that trigger to go onto the slicks, if that's your strategy, the better off you're going to be.
Absolutely right. Well, this is Ferry Stanley's view. Now look at that. That road to me is virtually dry. There's just a hint of spray being generated by the back of the Porsche there, but it's a much, much drier racetrack than it was earlier on. 28 minutes of the race to go. Now into the pit lane has come number 138, Williamson Joto's JMX Juniors BMW out of the silver class. So 18th he got himself up to, but look, still none of that leading half the field virtually serving the mandatory pit stop, and the lead gap is 2.3 seconds. I reckon that Filippo Bocchida now is just edging ever so slightly closer to Andika Maulana.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Just trying to test out the car a little bit, see how hard she can push. And remember, she's not necessarily fighting Milana here at this point. Those are two different categories of cars. And so she may just be in a position to cruise on home. I mean, look at how many cars she has in between herself and Nabil there, the closest other silver competitor.
Very true indeed. Yeah, it's a huge lead in that class. The wiper is still on when you look at Filippa Bocchina's car. She is hard at work, so Filippa comes out of the Tamburello, reprofiled on the real circuit after the accidents of 1994. And once more, as you look at the Porsche there, you'd say that the rain was falling again. So are we now in a situation where, having dried out, the rain is going to come back? Look, there's more evidence of it. It's more evident on the shots, isn't it, on the vision there as the cars climb up towards Piratella. You see number 3 Daniel Hunter's Honda go through, but is the rain starting to fall? So just as people thought they knew what they were going to do on tyres in the pit stop, so the rain is coming back potentially.
Yeah, and there you can see it as you ride on board with Daniel Hunter, that windshield going absolutely wild, trying to get the rain away. Yeah, the rain definitely starting to come down more and more here, and this is why you wait to come down for your pit stop. You don't know what the weather conditions will do, and now I think the option is going to be stay on the wets when you come on in.
I think you're right, yeah, because the road is certainly changing for the worst, isn't it? So had you pitted couple of laps ago, you might have gone on to slicks, but right now, there you can see, look, the Mercedes just up ahead of Javier Lau going wide, so Lai there counts the wet part of the road against him, and it slithers the car out wide. Right now, yeah, you want to stay on wets, maybe even a fresh set of wets if that doesn't cost you too much time, because the previous set might have lost some of their edge by running on a drier road.
Yes, they may have, as Hunter here looks like he's got a pretty good run. Going to look down to the inside of Lai there as they go into Tamburello. Honda versus Mercedes. Oh, just edges ahead.
That was bold stuff, wasn't it? Got his elbows out there, did Daniel Hunter. Well, through he has gone. The happy lapped Honda gains a place. This is a happy lap because he's won further place up the order, 28th overall. He's still quite a long way down the overall order, but look, having cleared the Mercedes, that Honda absolutely charges away up the road.
Yeah, certainly does. Looks like it's been able to grow a nice substantial gap there, and so that will be good news for the Happy Laps Racing driver.
Now the lead gap is coming down. Look, it's 2 seconds now. Filippa Bocchina is certainly coming back at Andika Malana. 390 is in 6th place, that being the Yatlam Lau BMW as it turns up now through Tosa, and Ryan Houlihan in the meantime is still hard at work as well because he's got traffic stacked up behind him. Other BMWs are battling, including their number 951 of Kejin Kao. So that LK full pace racing car in a really good battle. Williamson Giotto is ahead, and just behind is Sergei Mironenko.
And a little bit later onto the binders, there was Mironenko looking to the inside a little bit. I think that could have cost him just a hair of time. And indeed, as they come off of Ravazza 2, as we've got another penalty coming down here from race control to car 56 for causing a collision.
Yeah, 56 is Damon Woods with his Porsche, so I'm afraid to say that's going to drop him further down the pack. 12th on the racetrack at the moment, but add that penalty on and he will tumble.
Yeah, that'll certainly hurt him as he comes down pit lane to serve his pit stop. You will have to remain stationary in the box for 5 seconds as we continue to watch this battle with the full-pace racing driver of Kejin Kao holding on to position here. Looking very aggressive behind there is Sergei Mironenko, really poking the nose of that Audi this way and that.
So right now, with the road getting damper once again, we've only got just under 9 minutes of the pit window still open. So 24 minutes, give or take, of the race to go, but 9 of those minutes for the pit window. So the teams now need to start thinking about a strategy as to when to pit and what to do in that pit stop, other than just take on the litre of fuel. Now, right now, race leader, it remains Andika Maulana. You're looking there at Kejin Kao, and Terry Rayton is also coming into the mix as well with his Audi. So battles continue to rage on. Damon Woods with that time penalty, remember that'll get added on at the end. He'll drop down the order. So 9.51, there is Kejin Kao. Behind there is Sergio Mironenko's Audi, in fact. So that's the laundry house entry behind, similar livery to that of Terry Rayton, and Mironenko 26th overall. Now Malana has pitted. This is significant. The leader has been in So Andika Maulana is now shown as being in 14th place because he's made the mandatory pit stop, the first of the leaders really to blink. So in comes Maulana, and the really interesting part now is whether or not that car is going to be able to recapture its pace and stay ahead of Philippa Bakida when she makes her pit stop.
Yes, exactly. We're going to have to see what happens as contact there between the two BMWs.
They get away with it, but the Audi also jumps up the order. Mironenko goes between them. So Kejin Kao goes through. That was pretty forceful stuff, wasn't it? And Sergio Mironenko is the other big winner out of all of that. Down the order as a consequence drops William Sonjoto. So his was the BMW that well and truly got roughed up. Now remember, out of the three that we've been watching there, they've all made their pit stop. So this battle not only will rage on to the end, but potentially will go further up the order as some of those ahead make their mandatory pit stops.
Yes, indeed they do. Ferris Stanley, one of the drivers that is in pit lane right now as we watch Mironenko now trying to close back in on Cal. Remember, there was that very aggressive moves from the Laundry House driver as he tries to get it going. And now again, continuing to take that line, looking a little bit offline, maybe cooling the tires there a little bit, maybe being aggressive.
I think you're certainly right about the tyre cooling. I think drivers now are realising that the track conditions are going to trick them all the way to the end. They're starting to dry, then get a little bit wetter, but it's never really been pouring with rain. We've never had enormous amounts of spray, so it's only ever really been damp and greasy rather than perhaps totally wet. It'll be interesting to hear the drivers' thoughts when DJ talks to them at the end of the race about what the track conditions were like, whether they were constant, and whether, if you like, this second part of rain has been worse or not quite so bad as it was to begin with through qualifying to the start of the race. So right now we've got the Mironenko Audi up towards the timing line, and Dika Maulana is currently 12th after his pit stop.
Yes, he is. We're hearing some more penalties being issued out for speeding through pit lane, so drivers starting to get a little bit of a foul of the rules here. Marco Wong, though, looking to close in on Wong up ahead of him.
Absolutely right. So that is the BMW which has made its pit stop, or has it? Let's see. Yeah, no, not yet. So Marco Wong has yet to pit. There into the pit road, though, comes the number 144 Mercedes of Dylan Tam. So this is another significant stop, isn't it? The Mercedes AMG Esports team LOR down the pit road.
Yes, indeed. Hoping to be able to get onto the limiter there, get everything nice and easy, get that fuel service. We'll have to see if tires are taken or not. Ferris Stanley, the car to compare to, the one who has made the stop already, currently your highest placed.
Yeah, so Ferris Stanley's got to try and get out of Ravazza and up towards the timing line before that Mercedes blasts away. Well, it's on the way down the pit lane, but of course it's still that long drive up towards the pit out line. Only then can you release the limiter, only then can you accelerate away. I still think Tan's going to come out ahead because it's a really long run out of Ravazza, but Ferris Stanley is on the power. He's going to close on the Mercedes, but he's not going to be ahead, I don't think. There he is. He heads up towards Tamburello. No, Dylan Tan keeps his place, but Ferris Stanley has the momentum to bring down that gap a little bit more.
Yes, he does. The question is if he's going to be able to bring that Porsche alive. Remember, as we talked about, as this rain continues to fall, if he's going to be able to lean on that car as much as the Mercedes up ahead of him as they run. So now as they go, warning being issued to car 60 there for some contact on lap 2.
Yeah, that was Sean Madison's Honda, wasn't it? I think we saw him get his elbows out, and then he also got himself in strife and went off the road. So a little bit brutal, and the officials just doing a bit of finger wagging to say don't do that again. Right, Ferris Stanley then stays behind Dylan Tan. Next question, can Philippa Bokida on her pit stop jump ahead of Andika Maulana, who is, of course, the driver that led into this pit stop window. Number 77 Ferrari turns through. That is Yugo Osaki in the HPD JS Pro Asia Honda. So 77 goes through. There it is, down towards Piratella. And right now, that car is another one creeping up the order, but it's slightly out of sequence because it's yet to make a pit stop.
Yeah, and with only 3 minutes left to go, I think you were calling it right there earlier, David, that we are going to see a mad scramble down pit lane. And we've got some more incidents being handed down, but they will be investigated post-race.
Yeah, like the stewards don't have enough to worry about right now, so they're going to have a look at those at the end of the race after the checkered flag, so it could well be that the order shuffles again. Right, what have we got left? Just under 3 minutes. You're looking at 2 racing laps, aren't you, before the pit window closes?
Yeah, that's about right on the time calculation. So as they come down in here, watching Osaka, one of the drivers that still needs to be able to come down pit lane, as does the majority of some of the front runners here as they go. Looks like Yugo going to pull down pit lane.
Yeah, that's right. Osaki comes in. Now that's Filippo Bocchida, who for the moment is the on-the-road leader. And the best of the stoppers, Andika Maulana, in 5th place now. So Filippo Bocchida trying to treat these laps like dummy qualifying laps, go as fast as possible. That's fine, that's doable, as long as you don't catch any traffic. So those cars that have made a pit stop and come back out, potentially set to jeopardise Filippo Bocchida's good pace, because they'll get in the way. Definitely, to my eye, the road is looking wetter once again. Now, does she peel in this time? The answer is yes. So this is an absolutely crucial pit stop, not only to keep the class lead, but maybe get the lead of the race outright.
It is indeed. Let's see how the 326 is going to be able to handle it. There is Milana is working their way around. A little bit of traffic up in front of them in the form of that Bentley of Sang, and that is going to throw things off, maybe slow down your former leader.
Absolutely right. Andika Maulana's pace compromised now by being caught in the traffic. Filippo Bocchida heads down the pit lane, does everything that's required within this pit stop, takes on a litre of fuel and stays there for quite a long time. Now that suggests maybe more work was done. What do you think?
I think there may have been a little bit of a tire change on that. A big smile from Philippa as she gets back down onto the power. Milana now powering down the main straightaway. This is going to be close.
It is indeed. The Mercedes will have the momentum, but the Porsche is out first, and Filippo Bocchida is just going to jump ahead. But here comes the Mercedes back on the inside line. Maulana retakes the advantage. It's still a wet and slippery circuit, but Andika Maulana, despite the traffic getting in the way, got the run. He's back in the lead overall. Filippo Bocchida still second, still leading her class.
Still leading her class, but crucially, look at that gap. It has come down to the tune of about a full second over the course of that pit stop. And so that means Bocchida is now going to be in full charge mode, I think.
Does it ever? And there are more battles still raging on lower down the order as well. Cajun Cow comes up to try to make a move here. Look, in 951 BMW, it is the Luis Moreno Motel Racing Aston Martin that he's alongside. And while they battle, look, there are cars coming out of the pit lane, making Imola feel very narrow indeed. Cow to the inside line. Cow moves through on the inside.
Cow's going to be able to get that move done. Well done there for Cow to be able to move himself up and ahead as we jump around in the field. Mitch Hobbs in a nice little battle here.
Another of the Happy Laps entries then. The Bentley heads up towards the line and should be able to go through there up past the Javier Lai Mercedes. Lai, we've seen quite a lot of in this race, but sadly losing places rather than gaining.
Yeah, it just doesn't look like it has the feel for the track out here today. And that can happen sometimes, David. You just kind of lose that rhythm. And especially at a place like Imola, you've got to be in that zone. And you can't think about the rhythm, really. If you try to find it, you're never going to get it. You've just got to let it come to you.
I think part of the problem, you're right, it's all to do with the traffic as well. I mean, it's a very, very big grid, 39 starters, plus, of course, many of them pitting all at once. So you suddenly come across not just one slower car, but a wave of them that have all just pitted, especially as so many have left it late in the window. Now, the window was closed. The pit stops should all be done and dusted for everybody now.
Yes, everything taken care of here. So every battle that you're going to be seeing out on track is going to be for position, not having to worry about that strategy, including this close one right here with Moreno, Mironenko, and Sang. Oh, as Mironenko again continues to poke that Audi's nose to the inside there, trying to force as many errors as possible.
Some great battles, as you might anticipate. Everybody, don't forget, even though we are talking about the Pro class and the Silver class, that's down to driver experience and ability, not the type of car. Everybody has a GT3 spec car, and the balance of performance, just as it is in the real world, designed to equate all the different engine sizes. Atmo engines versus turbo engines, heavy cars versus light cars, rear engine, mid-engine, front engine. It all works well, as Ferris Stanley here is hard at work down to Aqua Minerale. He has been staring at the back of Dylan Town's Mercedes for the best part of an hour, and he's still staring at the back of that Mercedes, and he still can't get past.
He cannot, and he's got to be feeling frustrated here at this point, but this is the moment as a driver where you can't let that frustration, that rage, that anger, any of that come in. You have got to stay calm, cool, and collected, and keep a good run like he just got through Variante Alta. Close down, just bring those tenths in.
So downhill they come then. That's Ferris Stanley, who is closing once more onto the back there of the Mercedes. Dylan Tam, though, is doing a good job of responding. Now, again, look, the Mercedes on a more conventional line. Ferris Stanley was up the curb, and as he was up the curb there, you could see the Porsche finding the wet part of the racetrack, kicking up just a little bit of spray. The rain continues to fall at Imola. These conditions really teasing the drivers, tricking the teams in knowing what to do.
Yeah, very, very much so, as both drivers here get onto the binders down into Tamburello, trying to see what they can do. It looks like that Mercedes able to pull a little bit of an advantage there for Dylan Tan, but not by much. This battle still remaining close.
Also, I would offer you the fact that different parts of the circuit look wetter than others. So that section of the track looked drier, whereas here, the Ravazza part at the end of the lap looks wetter, doesn't it? So not only are the conditions toying with the drivers by going from wet to drier to wetter again, but it doesn't look like it's a consistent wetness all the way around the lap. What do you think?
I have to agree with you there as they cross over the start-finish line and go down into Tamburello. It certainly does look like it's a little bit drier on this portion. Going down, however, through Ravazza and the run down through Variante Alta, very, very wet conditions. And that's going to make things very tricky to get a move done. You want to get the best power you can off the line coming out of Ravazza to set up that slipstream into Tamburello. And as the rain continues to fall, that's going to make it harder and harder to do.
Absolutely right, yes, and also you need to keep off those curbs because they might be flat at certain parts of the circuit which invite you to use them as part of the racing line, but they're painted and they are going to be very slippery as well. Now, Sergio Marinenko in number 7 Laundry House Audi, hard at work. You can see the equipment that he's got there with the sort of portable screen attached to the helmet, to his visor almost, and he is chasing after Luis Moreno as they come up through Piratella. Downhill, Aqua Minerale beckons for him. You can see his feet hard at work there as he stands on the brakes, drops the car now through a gear and makes the climb back uphill. On the power as early as you can, but be careful on a wet road that you don't lose traction suddenly.
Exactly, and that's the balance that these drivers have having to been playing this entire race long. As we watch the Audi, they're really clobbing the curbs, a little bit of opposite lock, but a great run there. Is this maybe the setup going down into Ravazza to get the move done on the 21?
He's got the inside line, but is it going to pay out for him? Because the inside for the kink is the outside for the corner. And look, Mironenko gets hung out to dry. Back on the inside goes Moreno. And that doesn't just mean that Mironenko doesn't get the place. It also compromises his exit speed and brings Chris Tsang in the Bentley right back onto his tail. 10 minutes on the clock now.
10 minutes on the clock, 10 minutes for these drivers left to get their moves done, and it looks like that Bentley there for Sang thought we may have had a little bit of a run, but he's going to have to be very late on the binders indeed if he wants to get anything done down into Tamburello. The Bentley closes up, almost contact, I think there was.
Absolutely, and off the road goes Sang. So he braked as late as he possibly could, got into the back of the Audi, off the road goes the Bentley. Now he's the one compromised, so William Sanjotto comes back at him. The BMW to the outside, to the inside as they head now down towards the Villeneuve chicane. So finally, Mironenko has managed to shake away the traffic behind him and concentrate on what's going on up the road. But look at this for the race lead. Bokida is on the back of Maulana, 0.4 of a second. This is less than it has been really since the race began. And Filippo Bokida going for a class win. That box is virtually ticked, but going for the outright win as well.
Yes, she is, and we said this when they came out of the pit stops that Filippo Bokida was going to be in full attack mode, and that's exactly what she has been in that RAG Esports number 326, trying to push here, going to get a good help of slipstream down this curving straight as they break down into Tamburello.
Nose to tail they run then. So is this going to be an opportunity for the Porsche to make a move? Maulana now has one job, and that is to make that Mercedes as wide as possible. It doesn't matter what the gap is by which he wins as long as he wins. But equally, he's got a decision to make because he could afford to let Filippo Bokida go and still win his class and still take maximum points in Pro. So what does he do? Win the race outright or just settle for the class win? This is the balance, isn't it? Between wanting to win, being sensible for the championship, but not getting in strife.
Exactly, David, and it's one of the hardest things for racers to be able to try to balance, because that racer's instinct just tells you you have got to be able to attack, and sometimes you've got to be thinking ahead of that and trying to fight against it as they run. So right now, as they go down into the corner, only 0.6 of a second separating the two, I think we're going to see a battle on our hands.
I think you're right, because both of them are keen for an outright victory. Remember, the Mercedes driver, Andika Maulana, runs second in the pro category in terms of points. He was second in class at Barcelona, so a win here would bring him to the joint championship lead with Dylan Tan. But Philippa Bokida won outright at Barcelona. She wants another outright win, but equally Maulana wants to uphold the honour of the pros over the silvers. But right now, that Porsche looks the quicker of the two.
It certainly does. Able to get off the corner a little bit better. Let's see how Philippa is able to take the corner here coming out of Hrvatska 2. Again, this is the wetter part of the track. Hard to get traction down, especially with all that weight on the rear end of the Porsche, but Philippa does a good job there. Keeps the gap at about 0.6 of a second. That should probably close when they come into braking.
Over the timing line they go, then keep an eye to the clock. So 7 minutes of the race remain as the cars now accelerate once more up towards Tamburello. There, Andika Maulana makes sure there's no gap on the inside. Philippa Bokida sits on the tail of that Mercedes, applying the pressure rather than at the moment moving left and right to try to make a move. It's just a case of applying the pressure, isn't it, to an increasingly tense-looking Andika Maulana.
Well, and we've seen the sort of two different approaches to this from Sergei Marinenko, trying to poke that Audi this way and that, and then Philippa Bokida here just keeping the car on the line. I have to say, I like Bokida's approach. You just follow in the tire tracks of the driver in front of you. They know they're there. You don't need to be doing anything else.
Now, bear in mind that a pole position lap was 1 minute and 46 seconds. That's what we've got to accommodate in the remaining 6 minutes to work out how many more laps to go. It's going to be at least 3, I would have thought, after this one for Maulana, and he's got 3 more laps then of huge pressure from Philippa Bokida. And also, look, there's traffic up the road. They are closing onto the tail of back markers, but the gap is 0.3 of a second, and Bokida carrying more speed there into the Variante Alto, rides the curb and actually comes out of it worse, because the car had so much pace, couldn't be slowed down, round wide in the final part of the corner.
And she's got to be a little bit concerned there. There could be a little bit of damage to the front edge of the splitter of that Porsche. She got very far over to the left onto that curb. Got to be a little bit careful about that as we jump back here to the battle for P3.
Indeed so, where Dylan Tan is keeping Ferris Stanley at bay. So just as you've got Mercedes versus Porsche for the lead, so you've got Mercedes versus Porsche here for third place and second in pro. Now, of course, if Ferris Stanley were to get ahead of Dylan Tan, that would be very bad news for Dylan, not only in terms of the race, but also the championship, because that would allow Maulana to take over the overall lead rather than be tied for the lead. So Ferris Stanley's pace here might have an impact on the outcome of the championship standings 2 rounds in. Dylan Tan has done a really good job, though, of defending thus far and does seem to still have just a little bit more pace.
Yeah, just a little bit more as they run here, ticking down under 5 minutes to go. Dylan Tan calm, cool, and collected, not letting the pressure from that Porsche affect him whatsoever.
So up through the Tamburello, then Villeneuve, and then Tosa sections on the first half of the lap they go. This is that steep climb up the hill. Now look, Ferris Stanley has got himself a little bit stuck once again, because he's close to Dylan Tan but not able to find a way through, and that is allowing the Ferrari, the best of the Ferraris of Mohamed Al Alif, to close as well. I don't think he's necessarily going to be a threat for 3rd or 4th place before the end, but certainly he's edging closer to them. 4 minutes are on the clock. Race leaders catching traffic all the time now. The margin has crept up a little bit, hasn't it? It's now 0.6 rather than 0.3 as it was a lap ago. Look how much curb Bokida uses there.
And that is a reverse of what we saw on that last lap. She carried too much speed into the first part of Variante Alta and then got a little bit clobbered on the second part of the curb. This time, got a little bit too aggressive on the first part of the curb and clobbered over that. So some mistakes starting to come into the racecraft here at the 326.
But she's still way, way clear in class, isn't she? Because 2nd overall plays 9th overall, which is where you will find the BMW in the hands of Dafa Nabil, and then 3rd in the silver class is Marco Wong. Now that actually is quite a decent result, bearing in mind how long he seemed to be struggling for in the first part of the race and getting involved in skirmishes, because 3rd in class would mirror what he did at Barcelona, despite being a long way down overall.
And remember, that'll bump him up to, I believe, second place in that Silver Championship, with O'Hara having the disconnect here today. That is really going to throw off the championship standings.
Yeah, big disappointment for Andrew O'Hara, wasn't it? Qualifying on the front row of the grid and running so strongly at the start of the race. Now, Ferris Stanley is having one last push, isn't he? He's a little bit nearer now to the back of that Mercedes of Dylan Tan. He is not giving up as the cars accelerate their way down towards Villeneuve. But look at the Ferrari. Al Alif is getting closer all the time.
I'm getting a sense here that Ferris Stanley may be getting held up ever so slightly by Dylan Tan in front of him. We've only got 2.5 minutes or so left to go, but this is going to be a battle to decide the final step of the podium.
It is indeed, and it's also going to be for second in that pro class. Ferris Stanley has pushed and pushed and pushed all race long. Is he going to be able to do anything at all about that Mercedes just up the road ahead? And what neither of them want is to get involved in a battle that's going to delay them, that's going to give a chance for Mohamed Al Alif to get up with them as well, because Alif in that Ferrari has done a really good job. He's got stronger and stronger as the race has worn on, and he's virtually up with them. Now, where are the race leaders relative to the clock? Are we going to squeeze 2 more laps out of this, or only 1? Here is Andika Maulana, who is coming up through Ravazza. Remember, round about 1:46 is a lap time, and Bokida has dropped a long way back. I reckon they're going to start the last lap this time. Let's see. Up towards the line they will come. So there is Maulana. Mercedes goes through. Of course, Imola is one of those circuits where the start and finish line are in different places, so it's going to be touch and go this.
Yes, it is. We're going to have to kind of keep an eye on it. But as you said, Bokita, I think, just kind of recognized here that the battle wasn't to be fought. She wasn't going to be able to get up on by. And I'm getting the sense that she's just in a little bit of a mode here of bring the car home. She's still going to take that silver class victory.
Yeah, I think that's a sensible thing to do, because in these treacherous conditions, especially when you've got so much of an advantage over your class rivals, it is the sensible thing to do. Look in the background, Tan has got Stanley all over him like a rash now. They could not be closer for 3rd and 4th places. There they are, Dylan Tan, Mercedes, Ferris Stanley, Porsche. And this is the climb out of Tosa, and it looks as though the Mercedes here, which always has bags of torque, just gets up the hill a bit better.
Yeah, just able to get a little bit of better run, and they've got a little bit more breathing room back to Alif, 1.3 seconds as they run, so I think that's going to be enough breathing room to let Ferris Stanley maybe feel like he can take a dive here in the last couple of corners.
So down towards Acqua Minerale they come, through that right-hander, ride the curb on the inside, back on the power, drag the car uphill towards the Variante Alta. Up front though, Andika Maulana is heading for the end of the lap. Is he heading for a checkered flag though? It's going to be touch and go this. Down towards Ravazza, out of the Variante Alta goes 3rd and 4th, but for Maulana this is going to be a really impressive drive, because he's withstood pressure pretty much race long. He's not put a wheel out of line, and Maulana is heading for a race win.
Yes, he is. We check here, and we're going to have to see what comes down to the line, if it's going to be checkered or not.
Andika Maulana then goes through. There is the checkered flag. It confirms a race win. He is delighted. Philippa Bokida is going to come through for 2nd place. Another class win. Really good drive by her as the cars then accelerate up towards the line. 3rd does go the way of Dylan Tan. 4th to Ferris Stanley. 5th in the end to number 44 of Mohamed Al Alif. And then in 6th place, Kin Long Lee. 7th goes to Yat Lam Law. In 8th place, Ryan Houlihan. 9th to Ryan Duong. And the top 10 should be rounded out by the BMW number 29 in the hands of Dafa Nabil. There it goes across the line. The winning margin in the end, 1.4 seconds. But the significant thing is the top 2 both winning their respective classes.
Yes, indeed, and by a healthy margin for the both of them. Checking in on a couple of battles back through the rest of the field. Russell Reyes here for the JMX Phantom Machine, trying to maybe come around here. Some lap cars getting out of the way. Ah Young, little bit of contact almost there through the 2nd part of Acqua Minerale.
Well, they survive it. Russell Reyes has had a busy old race, what with penalties applied to him as well, and he's trying to salvage something out of all of this. You can see some of the lapped cars have already made it home, but 28th Russell Reyes turns up through the Variante Alta once more. I think now he has finally shaken off the traffic. It should be a relatively calm run to the checkered flag now.
Yeah, it should be relatively good for them as they come down the corner line, the latest across the finish line. A couple of drivers squabbling there in the back, trying to get around some lap traffic as they go. And I agree with you there, David, that it looks like El Young and Reyes are going to come to the line with no problems at all.
So the Mercedes accelerates its way up towards the line, and as the checkered flag is waved, the final handful of cars come through. But a really, really impressive effort that by the race winner, Andika Maulana. Pole position and a race win. That kind of sounds pretty dominant, doesn't it?
It certainly does sound like a dominant day, and dominant it was for them. You gotta love to see it, to be able to see that. And once again, some good changes around in that championship order as we watch some of the chaos that fired off at the beginning of the race.
Yeah, it's a real shame that drivers did have strife, because, of course, it meant that a few of them couldn't continue in the race. They picked up enough damage. There was one of the cars that did make a good recovery, but getting roughed up early on, that number 3 Honda that we saw taking places where Daniel Hunter got into his stride a bit later on. But the track conditions and the nature of those first few corners at Imola all adding up to being pretty taxing for quite a few at the very start.
We're hearing that there was a last lap penalty being issued there, 15 seconds to car 901, causing a collision there. The stewards working right up until the end, David.
Absolutely right. So they've got all of this evidence. There's nowhere to hide in esports racing. Occasionally there might be in the real world, but not in sim racing. So in this championship, if you are in strife, then you're going to be found out sooner or later if you've transgressed. So 2 class winners, Filippo Bocchida winning silver, and Andika Maulana the winner outright, and of course DJ utterly dominant in pro.
Indeed, but we've got Philippa right here, utterly dominant in silver. Philippa, another race win for you here on the day. A little bit changing conditions, though, as things went along. Philippa, you got a copy?
Hello? Yep.
Oh, there we got you. I was going to say a dominant victory there for you in silver, but a good run to the end with Ramo Milana. Talk me through that race.
I was a bit miffed after quali. It was a bit difficult to get a lap in, and my final good run, I got interrupted going into the last lap. So I didn't get a really good chance to use the driest time of quali, so started P3 behind O'Hara, and same as last time, set it up for just cornering speed, and yeah, there was no hope I was going to overtake the cars in front. If I was starting in front of them, there was no way I was going to overtake them. It was a bit of a mess, and then, 10 minutes into the race, feel really bad, O'Hara disconnected. And at that point, I was just like, got a bit demotivated. It's not fair. He honestly, I think just because of how it played out at the end there, I think he could have won the race. But yeah, so I just pushed ahead. Milano was getting away a little bit, and then I noticed sort of half an hour in, he started sliding around a little bit, and I caught up about 1.5 seconds or so in a few laps, and then we got to the pits, and I just went for the overcut, and it almost worked, but I had a really, really bad in-lap. So I think maybe if I'd had a better in-lap, I maybe could have got ahead, but would have been really hard to defend anyway because the car is so slow on the straight. 10k an hour down on the Merc, I think. And then at the end, my rear tyres were just gone, so I fell off a bit.
Well, talk to me a little bit about the conditions. We were sort of wondering up in the box if there was going to be a call to maybe go to slicks, and obviously changing throughout the race. How were you able to handle all of that?
My car felt great in the middle of the stint. It was a bit weird at the start, and then the end of the stint was just really bad. But it wasn't that wet, to be honest. It was just, it was very dry, to be honest. The whole time it was damp. I think only the first lap was considered wet by the game. So, I figured that I would go really low on the pressures in the setup at the start. I clearly didn't go low enough because in 3 laps they were at 31.2 on the pressures, so it was a bit high. But the car was alright, so yeah, could have been a bit better.
Well, looking ahead to the next round, I believe we head out to Bathurst. How do you like the Porsche's challenges there? Obviously going to be a little bit tricky on the straights, but the run up the hill you got to be feeling pretty good about.
Terrible. And look, O'Hara disconnected today, but he is the king of Bathurst as far as I'm concerned. And he's in the Merc. It's the fastest car there. Everyone knows that. Even with the custom BOP, Porsche doesn't hold a candle to that car there. It is so fast, and O'Hara just makes it look easy. So, look, I might be ahead in the points, but he is going to be so fast at Bathurst that I don't know what I'll be able to do, if I'll be able to keep up or not. And the M4s will be quick as well, so unfortunately. So I'm not sure I'll be able to keep this streak up, but we'll see.
Well, we wish you all the luck in the world when you get there, and we hope the Porsche's got a little bit of oomph for you. But as for tonight, another class victory. Anybody you'd like to thank?
Just the same people as last time, and I'd also just like to say sorry for O'Hara for disconnecting. It's always his problem. He always disconnects, but it is what it is.
Well, thank you, Philippa, and congratulations again on another Silver Class victory.
Thank you.
All right, that was Philippa Bukita, your victor there in Silver Class, and now we have caught up with Indigarama Milana, a dominant victory out there, but you had a little bit of pressure halfway through the race coming from behind, but this has got to feel good to take a victory here at a wet Imola.
Yes, first of all, thanks to my team and everyone who keep supporting me. Yeah, for the race, it's been really tough for me. I know BMW and Porsche really fast here. And as you know also, that AMG is quite struggle on the curb. So, yeah, I need to find something on the curb. But finally, we made it. And it's really a great race for me.
I mean, a fantastic race, and then obviously in the middle of it with Philippa coming out of the pit stops right behind you, really putting the pressure onto you. Were you worried at any point during that, or were you just running it calm and collected?
Actually, I know Bokuda is really prideful driver, so maybe he want to make some attempt on overtake on me. And I know her car is basically faster than me on the last part of the race. My tire is already dead. But yeah, finally I try to defend as hard as I can, and it's worth it anyway in the end.
Well, it worked out for you well in the end, but as we look ahead, I'm going to pose the same question that I did to Philippa. We go to Bathurst next. The Mercedes obviously looks pretty good around there from everything we've been told. Do you like your chances? Can we see a repeat?
Yeah, actually I'm not sure because Bathurst is one of my weakness track, and although for the quali the AMG is good, but for the race is kinda scary on the mountain. So let's see for the next round.
Well, we will see you there for sure, my friends. And congratulations again. A dominant drive today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Well, that was your overall victor there, Indigarama Milana. And David, I can't think of a better two victors here. A great battle between the two of them, between Pro and Silver Class.
And what, again, it underlines in a way is the level at which these guys are operating. There's still, from the real world, a perception that sim racing is a game. It's something people play, and it doesn't really have a place in real world motor racing. But here you've seen another example of people at the top of their game in esports, not making mistakes, driving well, coping with pressure, thinking about setup, thinking about tyres, thinking about how the car might be later on in the race. And it's been another very, very good advert for the esports world, for this championship in particular, and another way of opening the eyes of people in the real world who still wrongly are dismissive of this nature of racing, because you've got people here at the absolute top of their game, and that's why this championship, why other SRO championships are so competitive and make for such good entertainment.
I have to agree with you there, and it makes me sad that we've got to be able to be saying goodbye here from a wet Imola circuit, but we do indeed. But we will be back. You heard us talk there to your two victors about it at Bathurst as we climb up and down the mountain on July 13th. But in the meantime, my name is DJ Clark. I've been joined here today by David Addison. We'd like to thank you for joining us for the Mobileye GT World Challenge Asia Esports Championship. And until we see you on the track, thanks for watching.